Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers.
Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Sunday morning. With us today is John W. Allen, and he's the co-founder and chairman and CEO of the China Corporation the China Corporation. Well, it's Chinese New Year's. John Allen, tell us what the China Corporation is, and give us the pulse of what is Lunar New Year like in China in today.
Well, I'll start with Lunar New Year because I love dumplings. And China New Year is famous for its dumplings. And I've had many of them. I love Chinese food, and particularly Chinese dumplings. So we'll start with that. But I've been involved with China for decades, many decades. First with the Chinese Cultural Foundation, run by Elizabeth Wang, and you've been very instrumental in helping that.
I guess me, you, and Elizabeth Wang, and along with our friend from AIG, Hank Greenberg, and we all supported having a better way of life together.
Well, John, it's interesting you mentioned Hank Greenberg because he's 100 years old right now, and very strong, but he has the same philosophy about China as you and I do. And on many occasions, he has stood up in front of the Chinese Cultural Foundation presentation and said, the two most important countries in the world today are the U.S. and China. And if we get along, we will create a much better world. So let's get along. So
and the
we
truth
share
is,
that common.
I like that. I like that common sense.
Yeah,
and we worked together on bringing the pandas to Central Parks, but we failed. Maybe we can do it again.
Let's try for it because I actually went out to San Diego to see the panda that ended up in the San Diego Zoo. So let's bring them back, John, because with your help, we can do anything. You're a mover and a shaker.
Thank you. So tell us, give us the Lunar New Year. It's Lunar New Year, and give us the pulse of what's going on in China right now.
Well, it's an interesting pulse because, first of all, China has 4 times the population of the U.S., and the real race seems to be in advanced AI general intelligence. And I think that, with a population that works hard all the time and seems to never sleep, including AI, I think that we need to join forces on how AI will affect both countries. But I think in the short term, China has adapted very, very well to a lot of the tariffs that Trump has put on the country because China has many, many markets, particularly in Africa and Latin America. And those countries are extremely receptive to Chinese goods and services. I've spent a lot of time, particularly in Brazil, and I can tell you one of my good friends is the head of the China-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, and he is a big believer in strengthening that relationship. And so even though the tariffs to China that Trump may put on are very high, China has many, many alternative markets. And I think that maybe we had some hiccups on a temporary basis, but the medium to long term is very positive. And I'm hoping that when Trump and Xi Jinping get together, they will realize that and open some more doors to cooperation. Because why should we fight somebody? I go right back to the Chinese general, Sun Tzu, who in 5th century BC, he wrote The Art of War, and he said, if you reach a common ground with your enemy, have you not defeated them without going to war? And as we know, when Lincoln went to Gettysburg, he reflected the same thing. He said, if you work together with your enemy, you can come to a common solution and avoid war. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that in the long term, I think that the writing's on the wall. China is being 4 times larger and with so many hardworking, brilliant people. I just hope that we get enough Chinese here in the U.S. and enough Americans in China so that we're all partners. We're not the adversaries. So that's my feeling.
I agree. Now, give me the pulse of what's going on inside China. I speak to this guy that's on our shows all the time, Gordon Chang, and he feels the world is coming to an end in China. Then I speak one-on-one with President Trump, and he feels that he can make a deal with Prime Minister Xi or President Xi. Tell me what your pulse is.
Well, I have many Chinese friends, many of whom go back and forth. And one of my friends, who's a brilliant financier, he just came back. He said, I observed and met with a lot of my friends here, and the Chinese people work very, very hard. They're very focused, much more so than Americans. And he's an American Chinese American. And he said, that drive and that focus is really going to put China ahead. And there are doubters and there are dissidents and there are people that criticize China, both in China and the U.S. Kind of hard to do it in China right now. But even in the short term, I think the pulse signs are that there's some very positive things going on in China. And if you look at the United States, particularly in the field of AI, some of the greatest AI entrepreneurs come from China. In fact, bring them over. We need more. And one example is at MIT, where they have some of the smartest people in the world. They actually have an AI course that's run by a Chinese student at MIT. So even though you hear, and particularly here in the U.S., we hear negative things about China because the press loves to point out the negative. But I think for on the ground in China, from the reports I hear and from the friends I know there, is things are definitely on the right track for China. And there's a sense of optimism, particularly optimism in terms of their competition with the U.S. It's not worrisome, but I think positive in a way, as long as we can collaborate rather than compete.
We got 30 seconds left. What else you want to tell the American people? We got 1 million listeners right now about China.
Well, all I'd say is go out and try some of those wonderful Chinese dumplings today and enjoy the Chinese food because it's one of the most enjoyable, interesting, and delightful things you will ever do. So happy Chinese Lunar New Year's. And as I say, when I converted my languages, I learned how to say, hello, how are you? Ni hao, wa ai ni.
Well, John Allen, I look forward to breaking bread with you and talking more about China because I think you're 100% right. The closer we work together, the better it is for all.
Hear, hear, John. Onward and upward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.